Y'all doing all right? Awesome, man. Man, before I do anything, I just want to give honor to where honor is due. Pastor Kendall and Pastor Starla, thank you so much for all that you do, your leadership, your vision for this church. Man, would you give them a hand today? Thank you so much, Pastor Kendall and Pastor Starla. Man, and I'm just grateful that I get a chance to stand here today and just encourage you in the Word. Man, I'll let you know right away, I'm not an eloquent speaker like Pastor Kendall, but I'm going to do my best to just encourage you with what God has given me and placed in my heart. And I just want that to come out, and I hope that it blesses you today. Man, as I continue in this message, I just want to show you a few pictures of my family. Is that okay? All right, let's look at this real quick. This is my family, my beautiful family. Look at my beautiful wife. She actually sings on stage very often. Man, she's the whole package. She can sing. She's smart. She's beautiful. She's got a great sense of humor, man. She's the whole package. I'm grateful to have her. It's by the grace of God that she is my wife. So, man, I'm truly thankful. And then I've got two beautiful children, Jet and Brielle. Look at their smiles. Oh my gosh. You would never know that they are rambunctious and get into things, but man, they are crazy and I love it, man. They're awesome. We have a great time at the house together. And then I want to show you another picture. This picture was actually taken in the chapel just right down this parking lot. Me and Brittany were actually dating at the time, and this same day, I knew that I was going to marry Brittany Wells at the time, and now she's Brittany Griffith by the grace of God. Seriously, she married a knucklehead like me. I'm thankful for that. So, man, I'm really thankful for that. And then I've got one more picture that I want to show you really quick. This is Brielle. She's about 5 or 6 months, and man, I look at this picture and it brings some emotions up, and it actually makes me step back and think, man, like about what was going on a few months before this picture was taken. You would never know it from the picture, but a few months before this picture was taken, my daughter was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis, and we had no idea what that looked like. We walked in for a routine checkup, and all of a sudden our pediatrician is telling us, hey, man, we've looked over these tests, and it's clear that your daughter has cystic fibrosis. We're going to continue to take some tests, but we're pretty sure that this is it. And as we're trying to figure this all out, we're like, we still don't really know what this is about. We don't know what's going on, and we decide to Google it like millennials do. And I want you to know, like, I recommend that you don't look at Google with any diagnosis or any symptom. Just make sure you, like, it always looks worse on Google. But we decided to look at that, and we were horrified. And we didn't know what to do, and we began to blame God. God, why would you do this? How would you let this happen to my beautiful daughter? Like, nothing was wrong when she was born, so how could we go through this situation? She was completely healthy. What happened? And we clearly forgot about God's faithfulness in our lives. We clearly had spiritual amnesia for all the things that he has already done in our lives. And I started to realize that, man, we needed to make a decision. We needed to choose to follow our God and put our full confidence and trust in him. That we weren't going to believe the report of a diagnosis, but we were going to believe the report of the Lord. And so we decided that we were going to believe together, and that we put our faith with other friends and church family and family members, and we believed together that God was going to do a miracle in my daughter's body. And the test came back, the test results came back, and our doctors sat us in a room that it looked like they were going to give us some bad news. But actually they said, man, we can't find any sign of this disease in her body. And I'm here to tell you this because, man, God's faithfulness is all around you. You just have to keep looking. You just got to keep seeking. And you'll find that God is faithful. In the little things, in the big things that you face, He's faithful. And so today, I just want to talk about the faithfulness of God. I want to encourage you today that whatever you've walked in with, maybe there's a situation that looks impossible. I want you to know that our God is big enough to help you overcome it. But not only that, but it strengthens your faith, that you walk further into God's destiny for your life. And so I want to read this scripture in Hebrews 10:23. And it says, let us hold tightly without wavering to the hope we affirm, for God can be trusted to keep His promise. Do you guys believe that? That He can be trusted to fulfill His promise in your life. One promise that I'm reminded by all the time in the Word, it talks about that He will never leave you nor forsake you. Man, that's big for me. Because there's sometimes where I feel alone in this world. Sometimes I feel like, man, like nobody cares about the situation that I'm in. But God says, man, I'll never leave you nor forsake you. That I stick closer to you than a brother. That I'm with you in the midst of a storm. That we don't have to be afraid, that we don't have to be fearful of the future because we remember the faithfulness of God. I remember, let me tell you this story. I think this will help you. Man, in my walk with the Lord, there was a time where I totally ran from my calling. God was continuing to show me that clearly that, man, God was wanting me to be in ministry, and I kind of ran from it. I was a preacher's kid. I grew up in a preacher's home. Man, my parents had strict rules there, man, they had man, my dad was in the military, so man, he was very he was really straightforward, and he gave us rules and regulations and things that we needed to uphold. And I remember like thinking about how I viewed God in those times where I let some of my friends like influence me. And I remember that I was doing things outside of my character, and I would start doing things that they wanted to do. And I started talking like they were, and I started doing actions that I shouldn't have been doing and hanging around the wrong people. And I realized that I was totally changing, that my view of God changed, that I looked at all of the things that I started doing and that I had messed up, that I had made mistakes, and I started to think, well, man, why would God ever use me? All of these mistakes that I've made, I've continued to run from this calling. Like I've continued to do this and that. And man, why? I'm damaged goods. Why would you ever use me? And I remember a specific time where my dad asked me to come to Wednesday night prayer. Like at my dad's church, we were always in church. So there was like a Monday night service. There was a Tuesday night service. There was a Wednesday night prayer. There was a women's meeting on Thursday. We found ourselves in church each and every day almost of the week. And so we were in this prayer service, and I'm sitting in the back, and I remember my dad feels the need to pray for me. And so he calls me up to the front, and in my mind, I'm thinking about, oh my gosh, like all of the things that I've done in the past couple of weeks. Like I definitely haven't been living a life that was pleasing to God. And I'm like, oh my gosh, my dad probably figured out everything that I've been doing. Oh snap, he's about to like call me out in front of all these people. Like, what do I do? And I remember a pastor friend of his hands him a bottle of olive oil. And at my dad's church, like when he would pray for people, he would take a little bit of olive oil and he would place it on the forehead of the person he was praying for, and he would pray over them. And the mothers of the church, we had mothers of the church. They were like prayer warriors, mothers that have been in the church for years and years. You know what I'm talking about. They would come and they would pray with my dad over that person. And I remember that he put that olive oil on my forehead, and they started to pray over us. I mean, they were going. And I remember it started to tingle a little bit on my forehead. And I was like, whoa, hold up. Like, God, are you touching me right now? Are you here right now, God? Like, this is crazy. And as they keep praying, like, it starts to burn on my forehead. And I'm like, what? I'm like, hold up, like, why is it burning? And it starts to burn a little bit more. And I'm like, oh, snap, man, is God mad at me? And then it starts to burn a little bit more. And I'm like, God, I'm so sorry for all the stuff that I did. And I start to begin to tell God all the things that I had done. And then all of a sudden, the mothers of the church start like backing away from me, and they stop praying for me, and they're like gasping for air because they can't believe all of the things that I'm saying and confessing to my God. And I realize that they're listening and they're hearing all this stuff, but my dad is still going, just praying away. Man, he's a prayer warrior, and he, like, whenever he's praying over someone, he is not like at all thinking about what's going on in the room. So he is just full on praying. And I remember, man, my forehead is continuing to burn, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to tell my dad, man, like, this is getting crazy. Like, I'm going to have to go to the hospital. And I'm like, Dad, I need you to, like, stop for a minute, man. Like, my forehead is burning. And my dad's like, let the fire of God burn in you right now. And I'm like, no, Dad, my forehead is literally burning. I need you to take me to the hospital. And finally, he stops, and he realizes that his friend has given him cinnamon oil to place upon my forehead, and I've confessed all of these things to the mothers of the church and to God, and that car ride home wasn't really great. I'm just gonna say. But I realized that I had a bad definition of who God was. I thought that God, all he wanted to do was to punish me. But literally, God loved me. And don't get me wrong, there's consequences for the things, the actions that you make. But man, God loves you and he cares for you, and he has a purpose for your life. And it doesn't matter whether you've been faithless, God is faithful. And so whenever I realized that I had a bad definition of who God was, like, I had to get rid of it. And so today, if you're taking notes, I want you to write this down. Get rid of bad definitions. Maybe there's a definition of God you view, and maybe you've assumed that God is this way, or maybe you've heard from other people, man, God is this way, or maybe God doesn't care for you as much, or maybe, man, God only loves those that help themselves, or whatever it is. Man, God cares for you. And that's the truth. But how do we get rid of that bad definition and truly understand the truth about God? Yeah, you read the Word. You dive into Scripture. You spend time with Him. And this is one more thing that I want you to write down. If you have a lack of clarity, you have a lack of confidence. And I think if we would go to the scriptures and begin to read his word and begin to have relationship with him, that means a dialogue that you're talking with God, then you'll gain clarity, sharpness, a sharp view of who God is. You'll begin to see his character, and you'll be able to understand that, man, I can have confidence in my God because my God loves me. It doesn't matter what I've done. He cares for me, and he cares about my situation right at this moment. And then we don't have to believe the lie of the enemy. We don't have to believe the lies of the world that tell us, man, maybe you'll get through it. You know, it'll be all right. You know, man, we'll figure something out. We'll help you out. No, man, God wants to help you in your situation. He cares for you, just like he helped with our baby girl. I want you to know that, like, the symptoms of my daughter said that she would never gain weight, that she would never be able to do physical activities. But you know what? If you looked at that picture, she's chunky as ever. She eats good. And when she runs around this area at church, she acts like she owns the place. And I think about that, and I can't help but think, man, God, why would I ever doubt you? Why would I ever let this situation that's in front of me be bigger than you are? And I want you to understand that maybe you've walked in here and that's how you feel. You're not alone. I felt that way. But God loves you, and he cares for you, and he cares for the situation that you're in. I want you to also understand that it's so important to remember what he's already done in your life. That is so important. I know that sometimes when I get down on myself, and maybe it's like a situation. Maybe I didn't do a great job at work, or maybe I dropped the ball at home, or whatever it is. Like I can get discouraged a little bit, and I remember a specific time that I was so discouraged, and it was like in the middle of the night, and I decided that I was going to look at my Instagram. And I went all the way down to the first picture I ever posted on my Instagram profile. And I began to look at every picture. And the funny thing that I saw was I started to realize the situations that I was in those times where I took those pictures. That God began to show me that, man, I've been here for you in this situation, that I can smile even though I was dealing with this. Or I could laugh and have fun, and I would see all these videos of us just cutting up because I realized that God had been faithful in my life and that there was development that was happening. Like I saw a picture of my first sermon that I preached, and the first time I led worship in front of anybody. I remember and just seeing God's faithfulness throughout every picture, just like in these pictures that I showed you, that I saw God's faithfulness, and emotions come up, and I get teary-eyed when I see those pictures because I realize that it's a memorial for the faithfulness that God has been to my life and to my family. What is it for you? What are the memorials that you can look to remind yourself when you have spiritual amnesia that, man, God is faithful in your life? What can you look to? You know, for me, it's even music. And as the worship team comes back up, I want to encourage you with this, that worship is so important. And especially to me, I've led worship for a long, long time, and I've seen God speak to me through worship songs. And there's a specific song that speaks to me all the time. and that's Do It Again by Elevation Worship. It speaks to me, and there are songs like time and time again in my life that I'll hold on to. And I'm like, man, this is my song for this year, or maybe this is my song for 5 years or 5 months, whatever it is. Like, I would hold on to this song because it would remind me of the faithfulness of God, and it would get me out of my discouragement and into courage and into confidence in the God that I serve. And so I would hear this song, and I would even sing this song, and every time I would step up to sing it, it was like this emotion would rise up in me, and this faith would rise up inside of me, because I would hear the words of this bridge, and I would be like, oh my gosh, man, God, this is for me today. This is for somebody else today. I've got to sing this with every emotion that I have, because God, you've been good to me. And I remember these words. The words of the bridge go like this: I've seen you move. You can move the mountains, and I believe that you'll do it again. You've made a way when there was no way, and I believe that you'll do it again. That you'll do it again. Do you believe that today? That God will do it again, that He has proven Himself time and time again in your life. And all you have to do is look around and see His goodness and see His faithfulness and His grace and His love for you. I want you to know I was just a knucklehead, but God blessed me with a beautiful wife. God blessed me with beautiful kids, that I get to do ministry, that I get to love on people, that I'm doing the job that I've dreamed of because God's faithfulness. But you would never know it as I was a sophomore in high school. You would never know it when I was doing the wrong things and I was hanging out with the wrong people. You would never know it, but God's faithfulness has proven Himself. I'm here to tell you, whatever you're dealing with today, find those memorials. Spend that time with God and see the clarity of who He is. And I believe that you'll have confidence to say, God, you're going to do it again. You made a way last time, God. This is nothing to you, God. This is nothing to you. This is just another situation that you're going to overcome for me, that you're going to fight my battles. I don't even have to step in the ring. God, you're going to be right there. I'm just going to cheer you on because I know that you're good and I know that you're faithful. And I want you today, I'm going to give you an opportunity. Whatever you're dealing with, I'm going to give you an opportunity to lift your hands and to worship our God. And believe that God is going to break those chains off of you as you begin to worship, as you begin to lift your hands, as you begin to sing out to God. God, you're going to do it again. I believe that God is going to move in your life, that you're never going to be the same, that you're not going to let fear get in the way, that you're not going to let your situation get in the way, that you're going to believe and see God do it again in your life. Would you stand to your feet today?